Okay, I think this is working. Right, look, today I want to talk about two things. Firstly, it's to do with an article we've just put up that is about. Evan, is this working or not? Look, I'll keep working on the assumption it is. I can never tell with this new setup. It's about a commentary put in Nexus from the research from Dr. Ardy Sixkiller Clarke. She's a Cherokee woman and she was doing research on moon people. And in America, particularly in that side of America, the American Indian people, it's quite common knowledge of the moon people. And we read that sort of a resume of a book she's put out called Sky People. And it just really resonated with the four skulls we found. And what she spoke about, she did research with the elders who kept the oral traditions like the original people of Australia. And what she found was there was a commonality in it. And the commonality was primarily like someone was standing there and describing what would happen if you put flesh and bones on the skulls we've got. They spoke about the fact that the moon people had massive eyes and they were black. And of course, this is what's very common with the ones we found, 46% bigger than Homo sapien, the biggest eyes ever. And we said from the very beginning that they couldn't come out during the daytime. Well, that's what she said. She said that when their people first got to their tribal lands, there were well-tended gardens, but they didn't know how they were there. And they only found out after a period of time that these people came out at night and they looked after the gardens and they came in a spaceship, and I made that very clear. But what was interesting was they said they came from a planet where they lived underground, and as a result of that they just couldn't handle coming out in the daytime and they had to go inside caves and underground structures to live. And I'm thinking, yes, this is the issue we've got. And then they spoke about the fact that they were thinner, and I'm thinking to myself, yes, and we've got the 43 centimetre femur, which is not got an elbow attached to it at the time, and it's still there, so it's longer than 46, but it was so thin. And then they also spoke about, primarily, it was interesting, they said that where they lived underground was a place at Tanama, I think it's Alaska, I believe, and that happens to be where the Stargates so-called system between the CIA and the US government is set up. Exactly the same place as where they went underground, so I wonder where that Stargate came from. Now what's interesting is they talk about blue skin, they talk about Pleiadian time after time when they're doing this. And then what we've done with the article was we've put up alongside that, we've started on a resume on the four skulls. And what was interesting was the fourth skull, which is found in Victoria somewhere on the coast, and that's as specific as I'll be, we have good information from elders from that area that know about this skull, that they lived in caves, and that the one we found was underneath a steep cliff and had fallen down, we believe, because right on the top there was a massive hole smashed through it. And we believe, from what I've been told, that it fell from the cliff above and it was buried in a cave. So what we've got here is we've got all of the physical evidence that Dr. Ardy Sixkiller Clarke was talking about from Montana University, I think, and we've got it in his skull. So we've put that together, and then we completed this article by putting down in a page and a half back about a month ago the prophecy as it then stood, the original prophecy of the change that takes place at Uluru at apparently 9:04, not 9 o'clock as I thought, at night at Uluru on the 21st of December, and we've spoken about that a lot. We've put down a sort of a 1.5 page resume of that to finish that article about the star people. And the interesting part of that story, ladies and gentlemen, is it's just like all original and indigenous timelines. It goes around in circles because they're coming back. indirectly. That leads us on to the second part of this presentation, which relates to the fact that, of course, once again, it's based around the prophecy of that change. That's the central theme with all these things, and we go off into different areas to try and add to it, explain how to prepare for this change and the history of the past and how that links into tomorrow, so we get that circle right. And we keep doing this from different points of view, and we're doing it in the next online conference, which is on at the last Sunday in August. I don't know the date, sorry, it might be 30 or 31. And it's the same setup as before, but this time we've done something different again. Again, I'll be adding more to what we've just learned. I had a meeting 2 days ago, and I had some input from another one of the three main people who we're in contact with, and two others. There's 5 in all we're feeding off and getting information about. And with all of it's an evolving process, and there's question marks with some part. Not so much with what happens before the event and during, but after. And we'll talk about that then. And what we're going to do this time is we've got that different group of people, and the theme is still about that prophecy, but within it, we're going to do a dedication to an extent to an elder that, as far as I'm concerned, was without parallel in our experience as we've been out looking around in the country of Australia, and that's Carno, who's recently passed on. And to that end, I'm asking Darren McElroy, sorry Darren, I'm getting mixed up with someone else we've got there. Darren McElroy, a Ramangeri man, and also lives in Bundjalung country and has got that lineage too, but is going to be a spokesperson on behalf of Carno. And he's going to tell some stories about Carno, and he's going to talk about that, and also something that the Ramangeri are doing, which is of vital importance to the spiritual welfare of the world, to be honest. It's a place where all of the sacred rocks we have and we're custodians of will be stored in a sacred portal. We'll be creating that permanently on Ramangeri land, and this has been in process for quite some time. He's going to talk about that, and I'll be talking about that too, because I'll be talking about the rocks. He's also going to be talking about Carno, and so will I. We also have with us, we're going to go into a different, in this sort of thing of going backwards, we are going to go right back. We're then going to look at the original story in 2 ways. Firstly, there's 2 parts of this story. There's the original story, and there's the story of our alien ancestry. And what we're going to do is we're going to invite in, and we're very lucky to have Paul Wallace with us, who was either, Evan, is he an archdeacon or a deacon? Archdeacon at Canberra, Anglican, who's written a book about Genesis and the fact that it's just riddled with aliens and extraterrestrials and a linkage between the two. And he's reading it the same way the original people read the dreaming. It's identical. And that's why we're lucky to have him to speak, and he's going to be speaking about Genesis and the real way of reading this. And of course it's quite controversial. I know he's been on coast to coast, and I know that the stuff he's done is brilliant. So we're lucky to have him on. Now, in complementing that, part of our presentation is going to be based around one of our books called Mary Magdalene's Dreaming. Well, we find, you've got to remember, if you go back beyond Pliny the Elder, you're going to find one thing. All history was written inside religious text. Right, so we're doing the same thing that Paul's doing, but we're looking at the Gnosticism and the fact that Gnosticism is basically just the dreaming, restated nearly word for word. And to that end, we're going to look at links between the Gospel of Thomas and the great writings of Kakadu Elder, Big Bill Neji. And we're going to take readings from his book, and we're going to compare it to readings from Gospel of Thomas, and you're going to find time after time it's identical. And in the Gnostic Gospels, Jesus speaks about a bubbling spring from which he's tended. He didn't say he thought of this, he said he was tending something that was already there, and that comes from the dreaming. And we find that when you compare Gnosticism and the dreaming, there is no difference. So we're going to go back with Paul and ourselves to the past, way back to the beginning, to see that the dreaming has always been here. And the links to the our alien ancestry have always been there from those points of view. And also, what we're also going to have with us this time around with our group is Valerie Barrow. Now, Valerie is interesting because went back to Carry On at the very beginning, because we will be talking about the issues there and the fact developments coming very close and has got to be looked at again. But Valerie was there at the very beginning of that place, and she was there with Uncle Jerry, and I went to his last name when it was introduced to people, and she's got a fascinating perspective. And also, the other part of this, while she was there, she made contact with someone that she actually channels, Al Karinga, who resides in Uluru. And of course that goes back to the prophecy again. But this is interesting because I've got to be honest, until we met Valerie Barrows, I had no time for people channeling, because I just figured anyone could do it. And then I met Valerie, and I knew her personally. And I knew the one thing I can say about this lady is that she would never lie about anything. It's just not in her nature. And people who channel, the ones I think are fakes, are lying. And they know they are. Now, Valerie is lying. She doesn't know she is. And this is not stupid, so therefore I've got an issue with it, because I have to believe in it because I know her personally. And that actually left me open to the idea that it is a legitimate form of communication. And then, of course, then we met Leah, who is in constant contact with aliens. And I know that's true because the evidence I've seen a dozen times, so I don't even question that. So Valerie's going to be talking about her link with Al Karinga and her link to Carry On, and her link to the spirituality of the original story that's very important as we come to grips with the change that's coming and the enactment of old ways throughout the world. And we have to link in with our ways, and there's a few things that have got to be changed. Honestly, there's one in particular, but we won't go into that now. But that's another part of the presentation we're looking at. Now, in going further, we've done 3, but there's one more. Now, this lady, TJ, she was working in America doing presentations for ancient aliens for 10 years. As I got a degree in archaeology. She's brilliant. Her work she's done for 10 years is well known throughout the world, and she was working in America. And of course, part of our presentation is about the original people being in America for hundreds of thousands of years this time round. So we needed someone to supplement that, because we need to understand that this change is taking place. The original dreaming has been exported around the world, and one of the major custodians of the dreaming, and they picked up in their own ways, is the original people were there, that another group came, and we worked together. And that's why they are still in link with us today, because there was no disappointment, no disagreements between the two groups. We live harmoniously together. We believe the original people living there, we've looked at this in some detail, they died out. I mean, they never completely died out. The Cherokee were there 100 years, 200 years ago, carrying spear throwers and spears, and didn't use bow and arrows, and were naked, and they were basically living originally. We know that Lake Titicaca, the people live on the rafts, they were original down the bottom of Patagonia. They were still original. And we know that we've done genetic work in the Amazon that finds the closest genetic links are Australia, not within America. So we go into all that detail. But then what TJ is going to do is, she's been on site for 10 years, reporting on all the archaeology. We need to go across to America and find out what's going on there that links in to this story. And by the way, the story, you need to understand, it's global. The change that comes is going to take place not just in Australia, not just in the world, but in the cosmos. That's why they've all been here, and they've been here for all this time. And what a lot of us seem to be calling it the event. So we're going to stick with that. We've been told that quite a few times, that it's going to take place here is seminal everywhere. So that's what our presentation is about, and to an extent the article is primarily about the Pleiadians, and they're the ones who left behind this, well, what the elders call it, it's their terminology, not ours, the ones that they're going to turn on at Uluru. It's called a magic box. Well, they put it there, so we need to know about them, so we're doing that. We need to know about the dreaming from the very beginning, we're doing that. And we need to know about this link to America, because it's the same story there, and that spreads it everywhere, so we're doing that too. And again, the same deal applies. Whatever comes out of that is split evenly amongst all the presenters, along with Leah, who's putting the whole thing together. And we do that each time. And in these times when we can't do presentations, it's only a small amount that gets split up each time, but it does help. So I would recommend people come and join us for this one, as it leads towards that date, the 21st of December, where the original people are going to take control and bring back the old ways that were set up here with the Pleiadians at the very beginning. Because I can tell you something now, the new ways are no good. It's just not working. I don't even need to explain why, because it's obvious to everyone. But what is going to take place, well, if it doesn't, well, let's say it like this. What if what the elders are saying from all over the country, and all the ceremonies are done for 9-10 years now, what if it comes to nothing? What if we all believed it anyway? All of us. Maybe we could make it happen just by doing that alone. I just think it's a worthwhile thing to believe in, because they've got nothing to offer me that I think is worthwhile. And the world's fallen apart. That much is obvious to everybody. So if it's right for a change, this is a change, because I tell you what, if it continues the way it is, it won't continue much longer. So please join us. Simple to join on. What's the link called, Evan?
Alienancestry.net.
Okay, right up. Okay, thanks very much for that. I'm going to turn the machine off. God, I don't even know if it worked. Okay, here we go.